Welcome to the Public Works Podcast. I'm your host, Shane Silsby, and this is the show where we sit down with the leaders, practitioners, and the public servants who are building and maintaining the systems that keep our communities moving. Public Works touches every part of our daily lives, the water we drink, the roads we drive, and the communities we depend on. But the people behind that work don't always get the spotlight they deserve. In today's episode, I'm joined by Vic Bianes, a lifelong public servant, experienced engineer, and the current president of the American Public Works Association. Vic's career spans decades of service, including impactful work with the city of San Diego and national leadership roles, helping to shape the future of the public works profession. In our conversation, we talk about what drew Vic to public service, the lessons he learned working at the local level, and how those experiences now inform his leadership on the national stage. We also explore mentorship, workforce development, and why public works has never been more important than it is today. If you care about infrastructure, leadership, the future of the workforce in the public works profession, and serving your community, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Let's get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works Podcast, where we dive into the people, the projects, and the passion driving public infrastructure forward. I'm your host, Shane Silsby, and today we've got a very special guest, the remarkable leader, one from the world of public works, specifically the American Public Works Association, which we'll get into a little bit, and that's Vic Bianes. Vic, welcome to the show.
Fantastic, Shane. It is fantastic to be here today. First of all, let me congratulate you. I was at the Southern California luncheon where you won the Chapter Leadership Presidential Award. So congratulations for all that you do for American Public Works. Well done.
Thank you, Vic. Appreciate that. Thanks for being there at that event. I know that is an important one for our chapter, and so they really appreciated you being there. Thank you for those comments. So, Vic, you're the current president of the American Public Works Association, and you've spent nearly 4 decades shaping public infrastructure, supporting professionals across this community and industry. We'll talk about your time serving with public agencies, but we'll also want to get your perspectives on leadership, your vision for the future of public works, and what else you have going on right now. Again, really appreciate you being here today. All right, so we'll jump in a little bit here at the beginning, if you're okay with that, your journey. I know you've got an interesting journey of almost 4 decades, and so you must have started when you were 5 years old, so congratulations to you. And you've had significant roles with City of San Diego County Water Authority. But from the beginning, Vic, if you wouldn't mind, what initially attracted you to the field of public works and public service specifically?
It started off in junior high school, believe it or not. Every year, the counselors give you an assessment in regards to what you could possibly be in the future. So one of my counselors gave me the assessment, and I took the assessment, and he said, Vic, you're very friendly. You have good communication skills. I think you'd be an excellent fireman or police officer. And I said, what? And so early on, I knew I really liked to work with people, and I had a fascination for construction. Eventually, it led me to pursuing an opportunity to maybe get into the engineering side of the house and be involved with construction and working with people. And I'll tell you a funny story here as well. My father's in the Navy. My mother was very active in business and did very well. So I ended up applying to the U.S. Army Academy, and I ended up talking to my cousin, and I asked him this very important question, Shane. Are you afraid to die? And he said, Vic, I practice every day, and I don't get an opportunity to play. And I thought to myself, boy, I didn't want to go down that path. I ended up falling back and going to San Diego State University. Initially going for the business side because that's where my parents encouraged me to go, but I was so fascinated with engineering, so I ended up going down that path. And I remember the first day going into the Department of Engineering where the professor said, turn to your left, turn to your right. 2 of you will not make it in engineering. Which one will you be? And so from that point on, I was very determined to finish and get my degree in civil engineering. So that's how I got started into the engineering side. And I'll tell you a little story. My first job was a student engineer for the city of El Cajon on the transportation side of the house. And I remember sitting in and talking to my supervisor and watching the higher supervisors walk into the cafeteria. And what was very funny here, Shane, is that they walked into the cafeteria by rank.
Oh,
Said, why are they doing that? Well, that was my first introduction to hierarchical management style. And I go, boy, that just seems very strange. From there, I went on to work for a private company, Associated Professional Engineering Corporation. And it was an opportunity to learn the client side. But my interview was very simple, Shane. They asked me this question: what softball position do you play? Because back then it was all about playing softball and hanging out with all the other engineering firms and peers. I later went on to work for the city of San Diego, thinking I would only be there for maybe a year or two. And it was a wonderful opportunity because it gave me an opportunity to move around and experience a whole bunch of things in regards to planning, design, construction, operations. And on top of that, they also had an ability to allow you to do tuition reimbursement. So I ended up getting my master's through the city of San Diego as well. What that taught me is city government, doing what's right for the communities. It was a wonderful experience. I spent about 32 years with the city of San Diego for the first round. Unfortunately, an elected official chose to do this, Shane, which was very surprising. He asked all the unclassified employees to submit their resignations.
And Vic, when you say unclassified, that means like at will?
Will employees. So I was a deputy director at the time period after serving that long in that career. And what happened is all the unclassifieds ended up leaving the city of San Diego, including myself. I talked to that person many years later and asked the question, why? Why did you do that? And she shared with me it was probably the worst blunder I made in my career because it allowed all the talent and all the experience to leave that organization. What it did, however, is now I had an expanded network across all of the county and all of Southern California because we all went off to different locations to continue on with our public service. I ended up going to the County Water Authority, which you alluded to as well, and had the opportunity to build some of the largest infrastructure in all of North America. The largest roller compacted dam. I was a design manager overseeing that. The Carlsbad desalination plant. I was a design manager overseeing that. Numerous pump stations and pipelines all through San Diego, helping put the County Water Authority from an infrastructure standpoint on the map. After that work was done, about $3.8 billion worth of work, the city enticed me to come back, City of San Diego, for a second round to be their assistant director for transportation and stormwater. And during that time period, the mayor wanted to repair all the roads. And that's very consistent with many of our public agencies. They want to have their roads repaired. I ended up then becoming the Public Utilities Department director and overseeing a staff of over 1,200 employees in 12 divisions. Marks my career in regards to public works and the ability to work across different public agencies, including small, medium, and large, as well as working in the private industry. Picked up a lot of lessons along the way, met a lot of wonderful people along the way. But what's interesting, all of them have the passion of doing what's right to help out our communities.
It's a very interesting and impressive career. I was thinking about when you mentioned, I think we called them the battery test or something when you're trying to figure out what you want to do or what best career. when I took that and said, well, you should be in engineering because you're good at science and math or whatever, there wasn't a component of that in the engineering realm that said, how is your communication skill? How is your writing? How is that? You have a very good presence for external, extroverted type communication, and not always aligned with an engineering mindset. I can see why you were very successful, because you obviously had the technical side to get your engineering degree, but then, the business oriented or that more gregarious side, that now helped you be a leader.
Yeah, let me comment on your statement there. The technical side, if you have that skill set, very easy. It's the people skill side that is very challenging. Your ability to work with others, work with elected officials, stakeholders, and customers, your ability to listen and to explain things in a way that people can actually understand. And that was something that was shared with me early on in my career. And after I retired from the city of San Diego, I ended up working for Kleinfelder Engineering. And one of the points I make with them is, at the end of the day, your clients also need to feel valued. It needs to be a win-win across the board. The private industry needs to make a profit. The public agencies also need to see value, and they get their projects done on time and within budget. So that's something that I'm working on, at least in the private side here in the county of San Diego, trying to share that message. At the end of the day, we all need each other so that we can build the necessary infrastructure and provide the services to the people in our communities.
Sure. One of the things I think you probably agree with is, whether you're working for a private firm in the engineering space or a public agency, both sides are still trying to deliver public infrastructure for the most part, right? So each has a role to play. I can see where you fit well in both sides of that.
Well, thank you, Shane. And you, coming from the same background, truly understands that as well. You can see the viewpoint from the public agency side, and now with your experience being on the private side, be able to complement that so that both the private and the public can work harmoniously together to tackle where you want to take them. Yes.
We might talk about this a little bit later, but what happened at the city of San Diego that you talked about, where all of the leadership, all of that knowledge, capital, all that experience left? That, not to that extreme, but that is partly what the workforce is experiencing today, right? People are retirement eligible. They've earned that right to go into that phase of their life. And there's a huge gap beyond that in years of experience and knowledge capital. So interesting microcosm for what's happening at a macro level now.
Yeah, very true. Everywhere I go, regardless of whether they're a small agency, whether a private company, the workforce development is essential. There is an estimated 1.7 million folks that will leave the infrastructure industry here in the next several years. It counts to about 10 to 12% leaving the organizations that they're from. So there is truly a demand to train that next generation. APWA holds a large city and counties forum, and the three areas of focus are, of course, workforce development. Where are we going to get that next generation of folks stepping up into our positions? The second piece is the funding piece, sustainable funding to come in and do the projects and operate. And then continuous growth, improving our organizations are the three major challenges facing the large cities and counties, but I can see it across the board. Those are essential things that we're trying to help with APWA focus in those areas. Shane, we spent a lot of times with APWA. I know you're on our government affairs committee doing work on the federal side, very active also on the state side. That is a paramount issue for us as we, again, encourage the federal side to identify funding to help our public agencies move forward. On the workforce development side, we have a workforce development committee that's very focused and looking at opportunities to share with public agencies and private folks as to where they can possibly solicit that next generation of public works staff. And then also with the Leadership and Management Committee, we have our Emerging Leaders Academy, which I am an instructor for with 5 others. What's very interesting is this program is set up to where folks actually apply to be in the academy. And out of the hundreds of nominations we receive, we select 32 each year to go through the academy. And they are some of the best in all of North America coming through. I am very impressed with the caliber of folks coming through this academy. But a couple things that they're really focused on here, what I'm hearing from them are associated with the imposter syndrome. They're not sure they're ready to step up into those positions. Generational workforce issues, some of our young professionals having to supervise older peers in their organization. They're concerned with failure. How do I communicate effectively? How do I influence without authority are some of the major leadership challenges that our young professionals have. But very talented. I look forward to seeing where these graduates from our academy end up going in the future.
Maybe we could talk about that for a second. What role do you think that ELA can play in helping prepare that workforce and or mentorship? How can that help sustain that vibrant new public workforce?
Yeah, before I answer that question, I had a lot of role models all through my career. And one person spent a lot of time with me, coaching and mentoring me through my career. And one of the things he shared with me, Vic, I'm spending a lot of time with you. The only thing I ask for you to do is play it forward, to take somebody else under your umbrella and help coach and mentor them in the future. So as these academy graduates go back into their careers, I also ask them the same thing. I need you to play it forward. Take the experience, take the training, take the guidance that we provide you, and make an opportunity for someone else in your organization to learn from it. So playing it forward will be tremendous. The other thing I ask when I go out and visit with chapters and other members is our EP folks, our experienced professionals, those that have been in the industry for many years, just like you, Shane, to take the time to mentor others, get involved, help that next generation step up. Because when we all decide to retire eventually down the road, well, I want to make sure that the industry is in good hands. And the only way to do that is to have folks that are very experienced, like yourself, help that next generation learn.
It's interesting. You talked a little bit about this, but if you're giving advice to those folks, you said get involved, but what else might you tell them for advice about contributing to the public works industry beyond their day-to-day responsibilities?
Yeah, very good point. Some of the things that I've learned in regards to advice that I give to ELA folks is, one, you're in charge of your own career. No one else will do that. I learned that lesson the hard way. I made the assumption that my supervisor, my employer would take care of me. At the end of the day, I realized I'm the only one that can justify and decide what I want to do with my career. If that entails taking training, going out and taking more education, like pursuing another degree, that was all on me to decide to do. That's the first thing I would share with somebody. The second thing I would share with an emerging leader or a young professional is establish that network. It happened to fall in my lap with all the resignations from the city, but I'd encourage folks to establish that network, because you can always reach out to some other individual that may have experienced the same situation you had and glean that information from that. And so how can you do that? By joining professional organizations like APWA or another organization. You have the ability to work across in the network here. The other thing is always do the right thing. In your position down the road where they're working on the private side or the public agency side, you may be put in a position where you choose either left or right. Always do the right thing. And if you have trouble figuring that out, reach out to somebody, reach out to your network, reach out to a peer that you trust and have confidence in, and always make that right decision, even though it may cost you your job down the road. Those are the things that I share with folks in regards to what they need to take back in regards to furthering their career. And finally, don't be afraid to make steps, especially if you're early on in your career, just like me. Move around, try something new, learn a new experience. This is your opportunity to grow. This is your opportunity to learn what you're passionate about. So don't be afraid to take those steps in experiencing something new in your career.
All good points. I was reflecting when you talked about doing the right thing, always important. But as engineers, we're expected to be, or public works professionals, we're expected to be problem solvers, right? When the black and white on the paper doesn't work for that situation, how do you solve that problem? Maybe a little advice or tip here for ELAs or others is if somebody is trying to push you in a direction on the pathway to go to get to a solution, and that pathway starts to get off track, or maybe it's an ethical issue or a legal issue or a safety issue, try to pull that person back if you can. With elected officials, it can be an interesting discussion, but try to say, what is the ultimate outcome you want to achieve? And let me figure out the pathway to get there. And if you allow me to figure out the pathway, I'll make sure it's done ethically, correctly, legally, safely. But just tell me what you want to achieve. Try not to be prescriptive on the pathway to get there. And that can sometimes get the person to reflect a little bit. Oh, really? I just worry about the outcome. So maybe that's something that people can try as a strategy as well.
Yeah, very good point, Shane, that ultimately, sometimes we as technical folks do try to look at it from a black and white perspective. Some of the suggestions I give to some of our young professionals is you got to look at it from a variety of different viewpoints, different lenses in regards to what a community member may think, what would an elected official may think. Look at all those different viewpoints so that you can come prepared in having those discussions. At the end of the day, it's your reputation, it's your integrity on the line. You need to do the right thing. And when health and safety are involved, definitely, you don't want anyone hurt in regards to some of the decisions that you make as a professional.
For sure. And so figuring out how you can keep those paramount and find flexibility on the technical side, I think is important for leaders, at least those that want to achieve a higher position, maybe a leadership position, because things are always changing in the industry, right? So what worked last year might not work next year. You introduce AI, you introduce different project sites. So it's not always the same pathway. That's why I think engineers, especially in other countries, are very highly recognized, because you have to solve that problem. It's not cookie cutter most of the time. So knowing where the boundaries are, where the guardrails are, and then trying to figure out how to be flexible in what solutions you might be open to, I think is important to give people opportunities to try to make the right decision in a different way for a different project, different set, or whatever. And if you can demonstrate that technical flexibility within those guardrails, then that, I think, can set people up for leadership positions, because that's what ultimately the bosses, the supervisors, the elected, the public wants to see. They want to see somebody that's creative, but knows where the limits are. So you protect the people that don't understand the details.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a story about another individual that I coached and mentored, where the work environment wasn't very supportive. And they wanted this individual to take a chance and go a different direction, a different decision. which from a probability standpoint would have impacted health and safety. So my advice to that individual was this: the work environment needs to be a place where you feel valued and appreciated. And if they're directing you to do something that you feel uncomfortable with, then you need to make the right decision. And maybe that work environment is not the best for you to continue your employment with. So sometimes in your career, you need to make those decisions that, again, is best for your career and your integrity.
Great points. And I think to put a bow on this topic is if it has bad culture, it's probably going to continue to be that way unless there's a change, which can always happen. But if they ask you to do something that's outside the lines once, don't be surprised if that becomes a pattern or a trend, right?
Right. Unethical. So you always want to be on that higher ground, of course.
Yeah. But because you're a leader in ethics and looking for higher ground and all of that, you've been able to ascend to many great roles and national roles. And in 2025, Vic, you were sworn in as the national president of the American Public Works Association, a role that puts you at the helm of the profession's largest organization for public works. If you're open to talking about that a little bit, you were already probably involved in multiple organizations or APWA, but what motivated you to have a deeper involvement in APWA? And then how did your leadership roles evolve throughout the organization to end up as the president?
Yeah, thank you for that, Shane. It all started back with, again, that mentor saying to me, I need you to be actively involved, get involved, establish a network. And one of my good friends, and I'll go ahead and put a plug for him, Afshin Askui from the city of Belmont. He's a city manager there. He was one of my supervisors. He said to me, Vic, I want you to get involved with APWA. And by the way, I want to put you on a committee to do work. So following the advice of my mentor previously, I said, okay, I'll get on that committee. And it was the internship scholarship program where I had a chance to, again, work with young university students pursuing careers in public works, giving them the opportunity to excel in their careers. And so I started the internship program here that has been very successful within APWA, putting students working for both public and private agencies and having the chapter pay a stipend for them to work during the summer. And if it worked out, then they can continue on with their status at that firm, or they get that experience and move on. But it had a wonderful opportunity to introduce college students to public works. From there, I ended up joining the chapter and rising through the ranks. And everywhere I had an opportunity, I truly wanted to make a difference to help the organization grow, whether it was with the scholarship internship program, whether it's with the gala, implementing the Public Works Institute at San Diego, looking at revamping the awards, putting on the 2023 PWX in San Diego, and working with a whole bunch of wonderful people here in the San Diego County to showcase our people and our projects and really put on a wonderful event. I also got involved on the national committee side, on the technical committee side, on professional development, DE&I, fleet and facilities, and everything I worked on. I wanted to ensure that we put out a wonderful product and we got as many folks involved with what we did. It was very important for me to introduce APWA to a whole bunch of folks and invite them in, do exactly what my mentor and what I'm telling others to, invite people into the organization and give them an opportunity to establish your network, to figure out what they're passionate about, and have them help contribute to our profession. And then fortunately enough, I ended up applying to the national board after Mary Joyce Ivers ended up becoming the president. Her position became available, and she really encouraged me to throw my name into the hat, and was very fortunate to actually come on to the national board. And having been on the board for several years, I was encouraged again to apply for the national presidency, which I put in and was fortunate to receive that nomination. And so my hope this year is to do all I can in regards to helping our chapters and members and our technical committees continue to grow and flourish. And I'm focusing primarily on the term the APWA experience. And like many of you, there are many amusement parks, and one that comes to mind is Disneyland, right? And it's the experience they give. So really focused in a number of areas, the membership engagement, allowing members to feel really engaged and feel welcome in the organization, empowering our members, giving them the training that they need to be exceptional. We're focusing on professionalism. Everything we do is in a very professional manner. And then driving innovation, really looking at what we can do to move this industry forward. And a lot of that deals with technology, computers, AI. So very focused in those areas, the APWA experience. And of course, this year's theme, Shane, is about people, purpose, and presence. And what a wonderful theme for us to really focus on the people we have, the purpose, what we do, and how we do it. One of the goals for this year is to really start a national campaign on visibility so that we are recognized as, first of all, first responders, and also recognized for the work we do for our communities. So that's going forward as we speak right now. You'll see more coming from that standpoint. The other things that I'm working on, we are updating our strategic plan. We have one of the committees, Strategic Planning Committee, taking a look at our priorities, our initiatives, and seeing if they are still valid for where we want to be in the future. So that will be wrapping up here in the next couple of months and we'll be rolling out. The other thing we're looking at is our membership model. Is there an opportunity for us to increase members, particularly for our larger agencies and firms? Right now, we have a model where we have 30 of those members be paid for under a group rate. Is there a possibility to get all the members under that large agency or firm to be members so they can take advantage of the training, the resources, the library we offer to help them grow and continue to go farther in their careers? The other challenge we have, which I'm a very strong advocate of, our operation and maintenance folks, always lean through the years in my career to help support them. One of the challenges we have is our insurance program for our rodeos. It's been very, very programmatic in regards to trying to solicit insurance for our rodeos. And happy to say we're on the final stages of rolling out and working with a insurance company to provide us with that programmatic insurance coverage. So more there. The other thing we're focusing on is our Fallen Hero Memorial. Police and fire have their own national memorial. Well, here in Public Works, we also have some of our workers that lose their lives in the line of duty as well. And we are truly first responders, first to arrive and last to leave. So we're looking forward to moving that memorial forward in Baltimore, Maryland. And my hope is to get that finished and constructed by 2027 when our PWX comes to Baltimore. But part of that will have a traveling memorial to give public agencies and chapters the opportunity to take that traveling memorial and recognize those that have lost their lives in their cities, in the region, in the state, so that, again, we will put some visibility in the work that we do in the right of way. A lot of things going on. One of the other areas hasn't been done in such a long time is during my term, we actually had our first national board retreat. So just like with other organizations, both public and private, you typically step away and you look and determine what is important to do in the next year, 2 years, 3 or 5 years. And this year we took a step back and we identify areas of focus for us and tasks that we want to accomplish on the communication side. Shane, we get lots of communication from our work, from outside, social media, but oftentimes we don't actually read it all. So coming up with a strategy to identify what truly is important, we're working on that. We're also looking at enhancing the services to our chapters and our members. Is there opportunities we can add value? And finally, on our educational front, having stackable types of certificate programs that align with what a person's position is within their organization for them to be successful at, and the next steps in regards to the education where they can move up to their next promotion. So those are just some examples of the areas that we're focusing on this year.
Those are impressive and a large number of initiatives, Vic. I wish you much success in that. I know you'll be pushing hard to deliver those. One follow-up for you on all the committees you were on, and you talked about the products for the listeners. Products are either manuals or guidance or some sort of a policy or procedure document. Do you want to insert a message here about accreditation and how that can help agencies with that more holistically?
Yes. In regards to the products, a lot of it deals also with identifying training opportunities or the latest and greatest challenges and opportunities for them to mitigate that. But accreditation, I'll be upfront with you, very challenging to do. And it's not a very easy task. But if you are an agency that can say they are APWA accredited, that means evaluators from the nation come into your organization and look at your policy, procedures, and guidelines and measure it against best practices. You get an opportunity to adjust and tweak that, where you can then, after this review is completed, can say you're an accredited agency. There are maybe under 300 accredited agencies throughout North America, but don't quote me on that, Shane. I have to look that up because I know we have a number of agencies going through the process to do that. But what a wonderful thing you can say to your elected officials that you are accredited. So what does that do for you? You can share with all your stakeholders you're one of the best in the entire nation in regards to what you do. The second is in regards to workforce development. People want to work for agencies that are the best. And having that accreditation, again, supports that you are one of the best in the nation in regards to providing services. So there is a lot that can be weaned from being an accredited agency and taking what advice that is given by evaluators to heart to continue a process to where you deliver excellence to your community.
Great. Having gone through a couple of those myself, it's a robust process on purpose. But in addition to the benchmarking you talked about benchmarking against industry standards, one of the other valuable pieces of turnover we're seeing is that it helps you put into place, the policies and procedures and documentation for how and why you do the things you do. Instead of those new employees coming in and saying, well, just follow around James, he'll show you what to do. And maybe James knew what he was doing or didn't. No offense to James out there, but if it was a policy or a procedure, now it doesn't matter if James knows or not. It's okay, what are we supposed to be doing? Train on that. And I think that can help more with onboarding and consistency.
Very true. And the other benefit with some of these agencies, we have a chance also to learn some of the innovative stuff that they're doing. And what that does is it adds to our repertoire in regards to best practices. We've actually learned from a number of these agencies and added to our best practice list something that they're doing successfully that we want to encourage other agencies to also do.
Certainly. You mentioned a lot of the efforts that you and APWA are working on involving workforce development. But is there anything else you wanted to add? You went through all those priorities, but infrastructure funding has been something that we've been working on and try to advocate for regularly on Capitol Hill, but at least multiple times a year, potentially going to DC. Anything else you wanted to add on that as a priority?
We are having some challenges in regards to where the federal government is heading. We are always encouraged in regards to the federal government reaching out to APWA to solicit our viewpoints. Matter of fact, this year, a congressional hearing was put on in regards to the environmental process. APWA was at that table. On the workforce side, we have a consortium in regards to focusing on areas in which we can enhance workforce development with a number of other associations like ASCE and ACEC. We also have the roadshow, where we highlight some of the major infrastructure occurring around the nation to celebrate our success, to showcase where federal dollars are being spent and the improvements and the benefits it's having on the communities that infrastructure is being installed. So there are a number of things that are working really well, and APWA is definitely at the table there. But there are also still other needs. And so this year we'll be up in DC here, right around the corner in February and also in May, as you know, Shane. And we'll be again proposing and sharing our stories in regards to the impacts some of the decisions that are being made at the local, state, and federal level have on our ability to either build infrastructure or operate our facilities and provide those services. So the comment I want to make is, those of you who are listening on the podcast, we truly need to hear your stories. We need to hear the impacts some of the decisions are being made from an advocacy point and what we could possibly be doing different. And that's the value you bring. Without your voice, the elected officials will not know. So please reach out to APWA, reach out to Shane. He's on our Government Affairs Committee, and share your story with them so that we can have a voice at the local, state, and federal level.
It's a great point. I was just thinking that when things do not end up in an emergency situation, or if they go well, people don't even think about the public works efforts that go on in the background to make those things run smoothly or make them safe. It's only when something goes bad or there's a catastrophe that it really hits the headline. So I think your efforts are, how do we get to the headline in a positive way first to make sure we have the training, the workforce, the resources, and all that stuff to continue to make those pieces of infrastructure safe, or avoid those emergencies, or keep the operations and maintenance levels where they need to be. I think that's an important effort you're working on.
Yeah, your point is valid there, Shane. We in Public Works are very humble, and we don't really take the time to really toot our horn. And I know every year we have National Public Works Week, and this is a wonderful opportunity for you to showcase all the things your staff is doing when things are going well, that you're involved, whether it's snow plowing, when everybody else is at home because the weather is so bad. We have Public Works folks out there snow plowing the roads. These are the message points we need to give. And even if you are still humble, please let your APWA chapters or let your national board know. We'll be happy to toot your horn in regards to all the wonderful things that your agency is doing. And again, it starts with you having that voice and sharing your perspective with all of us.
And speaking of perspectives, I'd like to get your perspective on this. As we look at the broader industry with all the evolving technologies, changing funding landscapes, public expectations, what emerging trends in the public works industry excite you the most, Vic?
Yeah, a lot of our focus this year with our technical committees is on the use of AI, artificial intelligence, and helping us do our jobs better. And so we've got to reach a balance in regards to what truly makes sense. There is some concern in regards to technology taking jobs away, but we still need folks to evaluate what is put together, make the decisions on what needs to happen. And so we're seeing our profession, just like any other profession, moving in a different direction. So it's very exciting from that standpoint. Also, we're treading in new areas, new grounds. And this is where I think a wonderful complement may occur with our young professionals that are very technically savvy versus our experienced professionals with have the experience and background on what works, what doesn't work. What a wonderful blend to bring them all together to come up with ideas on how we can truly embrace technology to help us move the profession forward. So that is very exciting. And you'll see more of that coming here as more training becomes available as we move forward into establishing the curriculum for our Public Works Expos, as more of that realization comes to effect and the pros and cons and the lessons learned being shared with our members and our chapters.
That's great. We know that you're busy. You've got a schedule where you're going to be traveling all across the country as the president. And so thank you for squeezing some time for us into your schedule today. Any other thoughts or anything we missed, Vic, that you'd like to leave us with, or maybe a plug for Houston?
Yes, we will be hosting our PWX in Houston here at the end of August. So I'm looking forward to seeing many of you, hopefully, on this podcast there. And like I said earlier, part of this is we need to hear your voice, whether small, large. Take a step forward. Help us help your profession in regards to sharing your story, sharing your perspective, and getting involved. Doesn't necessarily have to be APWA. I would prefer it to be APWA, but get involved in an organization and help us continue on and play it forward. As my coach and mentor said, as a experienced professional, play it forward, help somebody else in your organization learn and grow. And with that, Shane, thank you so much for allowing me to share my perspective with you. And if there's anything else I can do for you, please let me know. And I look forward to seeing what you continue to contribute to our profession as well. Thank you so very much.
Well, Vic, this has been a very meaningful and truly insightful conversation. Again, thank you for your time today in joining the Public Works podcast, and for your leadership for many decades in the profession and what you will do in your leadership capacities. To our listeners, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who cares about building better communities or the future of our developing workforce. Thank you again to our listeners, and I hope that you all stay committed to the work that enhances our communities and its workforce. Until next time, I'm Shane Silsby, your host for today's episode, and this has been the Public Works Podcast. Thank you very much.
See y'all.
As we wrap up today's episode of the Public Works Podcast, I want to extend a sincere thank you to Vic Bianes for joining us and sharing his decades of experience, leadership, and commitment to public service. Vic's story is a powerful reminder that public works isn't just about infrastructure or projects. It's about people. It's about showing up every day to serve communities, solve complex problems with integrity, and leave things better than we found them. Whether you're early in your career or have spent decades in the field, conversations like this highlight the importance of mentorship, professional engagement, and staying connected to the broader public works community, especially through organizations like the American Public Works Association. If today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to subscribe to the Public Works Podcast on our YouTube channel or through LinkedIn. Leave a review, share this episode with a colleague, mentor, or someone considering a career in public works, or public service for that matter. You can also follow the podcast for updates, episode clips, and future conversations with leaders across the profession. If there's a topic, challenge, or a guest you'd like for us to explore, don't hesitate to reach out. This podcast is built for the public works community, and your voice matters. Thank you for the work that you do every day in the public works industry, maintaining our infrastructure, supporting our communities, and strengthening public trust with your actions every day. Until next time, I'm your host, Shane Silsby, and this has been another episode of the Public Works Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.